Welcome to TXAPA Live. We're glad to have everybody here today. Chuck and I have been talking for 10 minutes, and finally we got a note that says, "Hey, you haven't turned the thing on yet." So hey, it was our best progress too. So hey, we're glad to have everybody here. May the 27th, we're continuing our fundamental series, and today we're talking about asphalt paving. And now, Chuck, you got to remember everything you've said for the last 10 minutes, and so let's go ahead and get started. Chuck Fowler, welcome. Welcome to the group today. And how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, and I'm glad to be here with you, Jim, again. Jim and I spent a couple of days together this last week going up to the city of Dallas and working with the city of Dallas guys in their paving crews, and had a great group of guys there.
Absolutely.
Had a lot of interaction. We spent half a day up there. We talked about exactly what we're talking about here. We talked about fundamentals. Again, another word for fundamentals is essential. The core.
The core principles.
It's the principles. It's what we have to start with. And we're firm believers that if you don't start from the fundamentals, you're never going to get that end result what we're looking at. Are looking for, and that's durable, long-lasting, smooth pavements.
Yeah, every ton, every day, the same way, and that's what we talk about. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but we're going to keep talking about it till we get it right. So we appreciate it, and thanks everybody for coming in today. If you haven't, if you'd like to ask a question today or yell at me, go ahead. Just go ahead and put it in the question box, and we'll get started. Appreciate everybody signing in. So let's go ahead and get started, Chuck. Let's see where we're going with this, and let's have a good time.
We are finishing up the fundamentals. Okay, so we talked about aggregates, we talked about liquid asphalt, we talked about production, we've talked about testing, we've talked about it all. Today we're going to finalize it with the placement, because we could do all this correctly. We can have the best mix, we can have the best QC guys out there, we can have all the tools in the toolbox, but if we don't perform this function of the final product, we're not going to have durable, long-lasting, smooth pavements, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And again, I really struggled with this particular portion of the fundamentals, because placement is so important. And I don't like to use the word basic, because it's not basic. It's difficult, it's complicated. But with Jim's help, we put together this presentation to cover the fundamentals, and that is the essentials, the core of what we're trying to do, and that is, again, place award-winning mix.
Yeah, if we get this stuff done, if we get these parts done, we are 80% plus the way there, and we're going to get us the type of pavements that we want. We're always going to be tweaking, we're always going to be doing that, but the communication stuff and everything else we're going to talk about today is going to get us the rest of the way. But it's important. I mean, go back and let's make sure we're doing these things every day, because as soon as we drop our ball, as soon as we drop the ball a little bit, that's when one of the wheels falls off, and that's when we start to see issues. So it's hard in this industry, because you're trying to do the same thing day in, day out under changing conditions. Changing situations, different lifts, different areas, moving here, moving there, and still trying to deliver the same level of quality. So that attention to detail has got to be real high up on the ladder. But getting this stuff done right is going to get us where we need to get to.
So getting us kicked off, the very first thing that I have to go into is communication. Again, we need to start with the fundamentals, and this is communicating with everybody involved in the project. All of your QC and your QA individuals need to be on the same page with your paving superintendent, with your plant foreman, everybody, your trucking foreman, everybody needs to be on the same page. And what are we here to do? And that is to safely build quality projects. That's what we're here to do. Again, nobody wants to be associated with a premature or a failed project, or a project that's really rough, or a project that looks terrible. Nobody wants to be associated with that.
Yeah, that's certainly one you don't want to talk about when your family's driving over.
Absolutely. And again, the way that we do this, the essential, the core to this is communication. If anybody's been around me any time at all, knows that I always bring safety first. And then my communication and quality is following second. But you have to be able to communicate, be open-minded. You cannot be closed-minded, and that's on both sides of the aisle. We have to be in it for the same purpose, and that is to build quality, award-winning projects safely. That's the whole thing about communication. I can't stress enough. We've got to be on the same page here. And again, it's the core. It's an essential to being able to produce and place quality award-winning pavements.
Yeah, let me just share a real quick story. Got an email today from one of the students in our inspector series, and I was having trouble getting a certificate. We got it all sorted out, and mainly because I made a mistake again. So it's, I'm pretty prone to doing that. But he was just he made an unsolicited comment. And he says, we tried to apply the stuff we picked up in the class, and a lot of the class was about communication. And as he did that, the contractor was initially kind of like, "Hey, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
But they explained it and they got around, and what he said, and then him working with his other inspectors, he said, "Hey, they're already seeing a difference. They're already seeing a difference about just understanding those basic concepts, the fundamentals, whatever you want to call them,
Right.
and executing them and getting everybody on the same page." And so my guess is they're doing the debriefs like we're going to talk about, like we've been talking about, and doing those other things. And initially, maybe a little weird, but they do work. They do work.
I'm a firm believer in it. And again, it goes without saying is that this is the core. This is where we need to start. The next thing we have to do is we really and truly we need to pay attention to the specification and follow a quality control plan. It's part of the specification. It's something that we should be doing. We have to do part of the specification, but let's utilize it correctly. Every one of these projects are different, whether you're in an urban setting or whether you're in a rural setting. Each one of these projects are going to be built differently.
Right.
And in that project, in that quality control plan, it states that you tell us how you're going to build the darn thing. And within that, it also states that you need to be able to use these control charts. And I'm telling you, if you plot your QC data on these control charts, you will know before you start having a QA issue. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. And I'm a firm believer in control charts. Jimmy Whited had taught me about control charts a while back. And I'm telling you right now, that is the way to go, both at the asphalt plant and in the field. If you're plotting your QC results and your QA results on these control charts, you'll be able to determine before you have an issue that an issue is going to be, and you can address it. You can address an issue before it becomes an issue.
Right.
And again, quality control is for the contractor's protection.
Yep.
Run all those quality control tests, make sure you're on the same page, communicate those results to everybody involved. If we have an issue, bring that issue to the forefront and address it immediately. And I'm telling you right now, if you use these control charts and you run all your quality control tests, your QA will follow hand in hand, and you'll have an award-winning project like we're looking at here. These are all award-winning projects.
Nice.
And they're really, and again, they were done because of the fact that they had a good quality control plan, they were following the specification, and they were communicating the results. So that's the start. Communication.
Proud for anybody to ride on, and as you've said before and many times, we don't want surprises.
That's right.
And by that communicating, by sharing that information, by staying on top of it, by forecasting, looking for trends in your data, you're going to be able to do that. And everybody, it's easy to do. It's not hard to do. It's just a matter of doing it and then starting to understand it. So good stuff.
So we got the fundamentals, we got the basics, we're out of the way. Let's get into our paving. The very first thing that we have to really pay attention to is our quality, our traffic control plan. And since you've been here, Jim, you have stressed the fact that we need checklists.
Yep.
And I'm beginning to believe you that checklists are the way to go. And again, our checklist is let's look at our traffic control plan. Are we using an approved traffic control plan? Right? Check.
They're in the spec.
It's in the specifications. It's in the plans. Is it properly installed? Check. The only way you know that is if you go through there and you double check where everything's at.
Yep. Do we have our signs at the right? Do we have the right signs, the right spacing? Do we have our cones at the right spacing? Do we have the right lengths, the right tapers? Are we anticipating in curves like showing here in this particular traffic control plan about where you put your flaggers? You may have to adjust that a little bit just to make sure someone isn't getting blindsided coming around a corner. Are you using a pilot vehicle? Are you not? All those things make a big difference.
And if it's properly maintained. So I want everybody who's listening right now to remember that properly maintained, because we're going to hit that here in a little bit later on. But remember the word properly maintained, because again, if we don't do things safely, not going home to our families it's all for naught. Okay.
Yep.
And the traffic control plan set up properly and well maintained is going to help us, to do that. And again, it's part of the plans, it's part of the specification. But before we start our paving process, we need to check off the fact that we got our traffic control plan, it's in place, and it's approved, and we're all on the same page. And remember, properly maintained. We're going to hit that here in a second.
Yep.
So what about surface prep?
Man, that's a key there, brother.
Yep,
That's
surface
a key.
plate. So is it clean and dry? Is it clean and dry? And before you put a check mark there, just because the roadway might appear to be dry, with all this rain we've had in Central Texas over the last 2 weeks, is our roadway bed really dry? In other words, is there trapped moisture? Because as soon as you start putting a tack coat down or you're putting a membrane down, you will trap that moisture.
You're going to find it.
You're going to find it.
And I think that's a really good point, Chuck. After all this rain that we've had for, gosh, it seems like it's been a week and a half now.
Yeah.
Everything's wet. The stockpiles at the plant are wet. The base is wet. Everything's wet. And so I think, people wanting to turn the key and just, and jam on the gas pedal when we have these situations is, we got to be thinking about that, and our partners need to be thinking about that too. It's like, hey, just because we can pave doesn't mean we may be ready to pave because of all the water that we've had. So
especially if you're on concrete pavement, if we're overlaying concrete pavement, those joints have absorbed that water, and that water is going to come out.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So checklist on a clean and dry. Check on the smoothness, milling, level up, spot level up. What we need to do. And then again, tack coats. Hey, we're being paid for tack coats. I noticed that there's a lot of tack coats being, being bid. The quantity is amazing. If anybody looks at the total quantity of tack coats now that we have a bid quantity for it,
sure,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So proper materials and proper rates, that's so important. So that's our surface prep. Hey,
and we need to address, just because the spec may say 0.06 or something like that, it may need a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And so that's where those calibrated eyes in the field are going to give us the ability to kind of look at that and go, you know what, guys, this could go a little heavier, or, in some cases it is a little heavy. Let's back it down a little bit by being paid by the gallon. The argument should go away unless there's just a dramatic switch, one way or the other. So
you'd be surprised. So again, we submit every month. We put together the amount of materials that's bidding within the state, for TXAPA's letting report.
Yep.
And you just look down at the bottom of how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of tack coat that's bid every month. I mean, it's amazing. Again,
but it's so important.
It's so important, and I believe it's going to help us again get more durable, longer lasting pavements.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have, all the research is coming in now from NCAT, from other places, is just showing, where we may not have given the tack the time of day, 10 years ago. Now it's an absolute critical function to be able to bond those layers together, and let that whole pavement work as one, and not try to work as a whole bunch of 2-inch layers working on out.
All right, so now let's talk about trucking. So we got our surface prep, we got our tack coat. Trucking, do we have enough trucks? Is it going to be a balanced production rate? We're going to talk about that here a little bit later, but do we have enough trucks for continuous paving?
So, there we go.
So if our balanced production says that we need 13 trucks and we only have 10, we're not going to do continuous paving, guys.
Well, the whole thing about, you can have the trucks, you can order the trucks, have it all lined up, but a lot of contractors use subs, and sometimes the subs don't show up.
Stuck with what you got.
You're stuck with what you got, and you've got to be able to adapt and adjust on the fly in order to make sure you can still get consistent or continuous paving as much as possible.
So is our trucks clean? Or sometimes when we have a milling field, that truck is taking millings back to the plant and then bringing hot mix back. Make sure that they're clean.
Somebody needs to be looking at that.
Yeah, tarps. I mean, again, it specifies in the the specification about tarps.
Big fan of tarps.
Are we loading properly? Do we have the multiple drops? Are we
Mhm.
making sure that we're not segregating the materials in the trucks? And then finally, I want to know about the clean out location, Jim, because again, this is one of your pet peeves, and you've
Yeah.
seen it and I've seen it.
Yeah,
So
cleaning out
location.
in front of the paver is not what we want to do.
Cleaning out in front of the paver
No.
is not where it's at, huh?
Not where it's at, baby. We need a dedicated place. Everybody knows where it is. And that dump man, when he goes like this, that guy's not raising his bed back up. He's dropping a bed and going to that dedicated spot and getting that stuff sorted out, and then locking everything down, getting that tailgate latched, and getting back to the plant for another round.
And again, it goes back to communication. Who's going to designate that area, and where is it at, and does all the truckers know about it?
Mhm.
See, again, it just boils back down to that communication. So
yeah, I've seen contractors where they actually have got it flagged out.
yeah,
They've actually got flags set up in these areas. They know where to get it, and ingress and egress of trucks into the job site. We talk about traffic control. Trucks have got to get in. They've got to get out. And I've seen situations where they actually mark or they give a paving an internal traffic control plan to the to the truckers, and they know this is where I come in, this is where I clean out, this is where I go out, and I don't deviate because you got people moving in and out. We don't want to have an accident inside our traffic control plan.
And it boils down to that communication.
Yep.
What about our MTV and paver setup?
Boy, this is a big one.
Yeah, it really is. And this is where we could spend hours talking about this,
2
about
days.
setting up the MTV, making sure that it's set up correctly, the paver is set up correctly. We got paved by the numbers. I know this is a cat handout,
right?
But it works for every paver. It works. It doesn't matter what you have. It works with all of the pavers. It's a really good tool to utilize. Again, it's a checklist. Once again, Jim has shown me the importance of a checklist. So I really appreciate that. Again, it gives you if you miss one of these things, you're not gonna have a good, continuous, smooth, durable, long-lasting mat. It's just not gonna happen. If you miss one of these items on the checklist.
And there's some good, if you go onto YouTube and you type paving, pay by the numbers, you'll get actually, I think there's several videos on this up there.
Todd Mansell's on there.
If you go to Cat's paving site, you can download all this stuff as well. We'll talk about a bunch of resources later on before we leave today. There's just a lot of good stuff out there. This is not new.
Yeah.
Okay. None of this stuff is new.
Yeah.
But even using the starting blocks, we talked about that this week in Dallas about getting those starting blocks down to allow for that material to compact, so we don't have bumps or dips at our joints, and we get good tight joints, and we got good smoothness on our roadways. All these little things. This is where you sweat the small stuff of getting everything set up properly. And when we do, guess what? You get pictures like you showed at the beginning.
Yeah.
And man, those are pretty. Those are pretty. That's what we should be. And if we get good looking pavements, they're going to last.
Absolutely. And see the check by that. So I like the checklist.
Yep.
What about the check by the spray paver with the paver and a distributor that is dedicated to that spray paver? We want to make sure that distributor is carrying the correct material to that to that spray paver.
Absolutely.
And that it's the right material. We want to make sure that that's correct. Check. We got the check there.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about consistent speed and consistent head of material. These two go hand in hand.
Yep.
It's a huge, and again, this is not the basics. Anybody who's been around a paver knows that the head of material and the speed of the paver is going to dictate whether or not we're going to have an issue in the mat, behind the mat. And so those are going to go hand in hand. Again, paving by the numbers will help you with those two. And then, of course, thickness, yield. Again, within the specification, we're supposed to be calculating the yield per each load. That's what it says in the specification. Again,
I'm about a heavy 100-tonner myself. I don't want to do it too often, but as long as we're doing it, as long as we're maintaining it, and they're trying to maintain and keep the quantities about where they need to be, that's really, I think, the important thing. But I think it's also important that we understand that there is a relationship between thickness and yield. Thickness is trying to laminate the existing layer, and yield is actually trying to improve the smoothness, which gets into ride. But remember and again, this is the 2-hour version of it. But that paver's only got 2 inputs, and that's a toe point on either side. And you can only put 2 inputs. So you can put ride, slope, thickness, you know, those kinds of things in there, but you can't get everything in that into that paver all at once. And so it is limited on what it can do. So just because you can see a straight line on a CAD drawing doesn't mean we can actually do that with what we've got. So this is where the communication again continues on.
Great point. And then of course, Glenn Dvorak last week talked about the ride. And if anybody has any questions or issues, need to look at that presentation that Glenn, hats off to him, because he really hit all the aspects of that ride.
TXAPA Live last week, look it up, texasasphalt.org, and they're up there, or also on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and type in Texas Asphalt, and all our videos are up there.
So here we got a couple of good pictures, you know, up there on the top right hand side. You got the end gate down, it's flush.
That's
you
beautiful.
got really good, you're going to be able to make a good joint there. Very consistent, very good. You know, the bottom left hand side, it looks like that paver setup. He's got his joint matcher. He's got his control set up for his material control, set up properly.
Head of material's good.
Head of material's good. And then of course in our
gate's
top,
good. Mat looks good behind it.
Absolutely.
You know, everything. That's actually a video clip we use in the inspector series, and we watch that video 4 or 5 times just to kind of keep going through and just showing. You know, it don't look pretty. I mean, it's not, you know, necessarily a beauty shot, but man, it's set up right.
Right. So. And of course, so much stuff is done at night. And again, please, guys, please discuss when we're talking about nighttime work, safety first. We got to talk about safety. We got to make sure that we're wearing our banana suits, that we call them the banana suits. Make sure that we have the correct lighting.
We want to make sure that class 3 apparel.
Absolutely, that we have the class and that the lighting is set up correctly, that it's not in the oncoming traffic eyes.
Sure.
And again, we need to pay attention to the traffic control and where our people are at in association with where the traffic is at. And then I can't stress this enough, all you 1As and you 1Bs, I should say, that are out there on the roadway, it's especially difficult for you guys to be out there away from the paving operation in the dark, trying to set up core locations and what have you. Please have a spotter with you. Please don't go back there by yourself. Have a spotter, and again, communicate, work together. Your 1Bs out in the field, you're exposed quite a bit, to tell you the truth, around a paving operation at night.
Absolutely. You know, and everything looks different at night because of the way the light is shining on it. Everything looks horrible. So the texture can really be challenging at night. But again, if we're doing the setup right, if we're getting everything set up the way we need to get it set up, it's going to look okay the next day, and it's still going to be all right. So,
good point.
You know, again, if you see something that doesn't look right, say something, have the conversation, say, hey, you know, and just say, hey, you know, it's going to be all right. We'll get there. And but like you said, night is safety time. The class 3, the pants, the whole thing. We've seen people wearing the halo lights that go all the way around, or at least some sort of light on them to show where they're at. Make sure when you're working around, you know, the rollers, they know you're out there. Particularly if you're bending over, marking the pavement, doing those kinds of things.
Right.
It's a real critical thing. We still got a job to do. And we just got to do our best.
So talking about the head of material real quick, I know that there's this percentage. It's like 80% of all your mat. If you have mat issues, if you have streaks in the mat, if you have irregularities in the mat, I believe it's 80% is coming from the head of materials. So if you
do you think that's important?
Yeah, you think that's important.
Everybody, what do you think? Raise your hand if you think 80% is a critical thing.
And if you don't know what head of material is, please give us a call. And we can spend hours talking about head of material, because it is that important. But you guys know what we're talking about. You guys out there in the field, the inspectors know what we're talking about. But head of material is very, very important. And again, pay by the numbers will help you get there. So we got our checks. Hey, now we're here at Compaction, right? Here we are. Do we have enough rollers to be able to compact efficiently and effectively our mat and it's matched to our paver speed?
And I think that's a real, you need to say that again, efficiently and effectively. Those are 2 different words.
Yes.
But But it's important to understand both of those, is that efficiency is a real critical thing, and getting the measured density or the effectiveness of the rolling is putting the right roller in the right spot at the right time, and keeping the system going and staying and getting that roller production balanced up with the paver, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit.
Absolutely. And then rolling patterns. Rolling patterns are so important. And all you 1Bs out there, again, on a QC side, on the contractor side, we need to monitor these rolling patterns. Just doing a rolling pattern once per project it's not good. Okay?
That's the starting point.
That's the starting point. We need to know that we're dealing with changing conditions. When the temperature goes from 60 to 90, 60 degrees in the morning, 90 degrees in the afternoon, or coming into the evening, your rolling patterns could and will change. So you need to monitor those rolling patterns. You need to understand when these things are changing. And again, if you're plotting your QC and your QA data, you'll see those changes throughout the day, and then you can deal with those condition changes, deal with them. So again,
we need to be wearing those gauges out till we really get consistency. And then once you get consistency, you're still going to keep checking just to make sure. And then when things start to change, you will be ready to change, and then you can adapt and tell the roller operator, I need another pass or need another coverage, depending on your terminology, just to stay in there. So, that low end of the air voids that we're shooting for is the low end. We don't need to be there. We need to be in that 94, 95, or 5 or 6% air void range as far as in-place density. That's really going to help us, give us longer lasting pavements, and we need everybody to try to work with us to get there.
And that's temperature related. So you got to know what the temperature is while you're doing these. It's all temperature related. Anybody who's been out in the field knows that temperature equals density, and it's temperature of the mat, temperature of the surrounding areas. So the ambient air temperature, your wind speed, all that goes into play. And we'll talk about that.
Go back to that. Go back to the back slide. Look at the picture on the right hand side. Look at that joint. There's two things that I really like about that joint. What's the first one?
Oh, it's straight.
Yeah, it's straight. It's straight.
If you got a straight joint, we're 95% there.
Yeah, 95% there. And we've set the paver up to have the right amount of overlap where we haven't had to rake the joint or lute the joint. And then when that roller comes in, it's just coming right in there and pinching that material in. And you end up with a nice tight joint that's going to work and going to give us performance all the way across, not just in the middle of the mat.
Good full joint. You're absolutely right.
All right.
So we're still here with compaction. And I just want to say real quick about pneumatics. I mean, I'm a pneumatic guy. Other people are not. I know a lot of companies that don't use pneumatics, but I'm a pneumatic guy. The thing about pneumatics is that they can really help that finished product, but they could also really screw up that finished product.
Yep.
Once that pneumatic tires become cooled off, or if they're not skirted, or if you put too much release agent on them, which I'm not a big fan of release agents on the pneumatic tires.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in keeping them hot.
Right.
But once it starts picking up, guys, that is ruining an award-winning project. If your pneumatic tires are picking up, you're on it too hot, or you're not getting your tires hot enough, it's not good for the overall appearance. And again, you're picking up the fines. It's going to be detrimental to the mat. And the other thing I cannot stand when I'm doing pavement evaluations, if I see stripping, if I see that pneumatic tire where individuals are squirting that release agent on the tires, and it's actually stripping the fines off, that first 100 feet. Again, if I see that every once in a while, that's one thing. But if I see it consistently throughout the project,
that's not what we're looking for.
And again, who's responsible for quality?
Everybody.
We all are. We're responsible for safety.
Everybody.
We're responsible for quality. Whoever sees that pneumatic picking up should stop, say, hey, we're on it too quick, or we need to get our tires hot. And we don't use a lot of skirts. I don't see a lot of pneumatics with skirts on them.
Yeah, other parts of the country, man, they're skirted all the time, and that just keeps the heat in. They can be lifted up, so you can get access to check the tire pressure and make sure everything's clean, that the pads and scrapers are in place, and you've got everything good to go. But right there, right there, those pads and scrapers are really important. And the good news about the the Matic rollers or the rubber tire rollers is you're not going to overcompact with those very much. It's hard to. So they can keep those machines running and just let that roller go back and forth and just kind of idle back. And when they're done running, again, just like any of the rollers that we're talking about, where do we never park? We never park behind the paver. We always park back where it's cool. We park on an angle. So if there is a mark, we can roll it out. All those little basic things, all those little bitty little things where we're sweating the small stuff makes a difference. And all that every time that roller stops, we've got a opportunity to either hurt or help our ride. And so,
again, paying attention to it, the essentials. What about our checklist for testing? Okay, now they're out there paving. We definitely are involved in testing. And again, what to test, when to test, and the frequency of the test, it's all in the specification. It's all there for us all. And again, checklist by all those as we're out there in the field working through it. And this is so important. The next one here about the chain of command and responsibilities, QC and QA.
Absolutely.
That's where the communication really has to pour in there, guys. Because QC and QA they're on different aisles. Okay, they're on the other side of the aisles.
Right.
But they have to work hand in hand. And QC has to communicate with QA on their test results. So when we're running joint profiles or we're running density profiles or we're running segregation profiles, communicate that with QA. And temperatures, look at all the temperature requirements we now have with the new specs, and they're going to get more tight. These temperatures are going to become more and more tighter.
Critical, yeah.
Absolutely critical to our paving, our placement. So,
and you notice there, I mean, in the specifications of 3076, 3077, and the others that are becoming out, we're basing minimums and maximum temperatures based on the binder grade, the PG binder grade. So, as we start to use more binder, as we start to use more polymer binders, as we start to move from 70s to 76s, well, there's a change in temperature that we have to be able to get a feel for and stay on top of. So again, this is a communication thing, particularly with rolling on PG 76 materials. They tend to set up at a higher temperature. You're not going to be getting a lot of density at 170. You may be running out of density at 200. So you've got to get in the mix, get it while it's hot, get the density you need to, and then either back off or continue on while we're doing that continuous pave that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. And again, utilizing those control charts will help you do that.
Yep.
All right. So what about our resources, Jim? We have a bunch of resources.
There is a pile of them. We've got them all in one spot, or most of them in one spot right there on that website.
Yep. TexasAsphalt.org. And then underneath there, you'll see under the resources, all hands, plan. And I'm telling you, we have a ton of resources there. Not only do we have resources to help you guys out in the field with these different apps, but there's also the updated test procedures. So if these test procedures have a direct effect on the outcome of your results, then those test procedures that have been updated and approved are there in the resource. So it's a great place to go. Again, you can use your iPhone to be able to pull these down. But we just have a lot of resources to be able to help us not only balance our production rate out, but to help us in the aspect of getting consistent density throughout the mat.
Yeah,
I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. And if you need any help with any of these, give us a call. Send us an email, give us a call. We'd be glad to kind of walk you through these. We've got a lot of resources up there on the balancing production rates. Obviously, this is a contractor function. And don't get too weirded out by holding things to a ton per hour, but it's an idea of getting those, letting the rollers be able to keep up with the paver keep up with the trucks keep up with the plant, and not just how much the plant can produce in a given day, and that's all we're going to lay. And leave the rollers behind. So we're actually looking at it almost backwards, is letting the rollers dictate the actual production. So if I could produce more, and I've got that whole crew out there, I've got, trucks, I've got MTV, I got paver, I got rollers, tack truck, all the sweepers, brooms, you know, at that point, what's the cost of an extra roller?
Yeah.
If I can get another 100, 200 ton or 300 tons out that day, it starts to make a lot of sense. And I know I'm going to get paid for it. And if I do it right, I'm going to get bonus for it as well.
The cost of compaction is cheap compared to everything else we have. You're exactly right.
Yep.
I mean, that's just so straightforward. And again, these resources are there. One of my favorite resources is the balancing production rate that Jim has, and then also the Asphalt Pro that Robert Lee has put together. Both of these are on there. We could spend 45 minutes to an hour just on this, but the main thing here is at the bottom corner there, when the rates are balanced, make it black. And I love that. You know, it's the same thing. And both of these programs are really good. The one that Jim has put together here, the balancing production rate, he's actually done a video. And that video is on that resource page. And that video walks you through on how to do that. And then, of course, the Asphalt Pro has the same information on it. Both of these could be utilized with your phone. And again, it's a great tool to use. And then another great tool.
Before you leave that, also it's also on our YouTube channel, and we've actually developed a free learning management system course. If anybody wants to take the balancing production rate, just contact us, and we'll get you the link. It's free. It's no charge. You can kind of do it by yourself. It'll take you about 45 minutes or so.
45 minutes.
There is a quiz, and there's several quizzes in there, and you do got to pass to complete the course. So
bring your calculator, guys, because you're going to need it.
We're going to make you work a little bit.
I know I went through it, and you got to have a calculator, and it's so important. Again, it's so important, and I like that, Jim, that we have that available, because again, you can walk through it and then take the quiz to make sure that you understand the process. It's
right. It is a process. It's a process.
So,
good deal.
And then we have a great tool here, and again, especially here, you know, with the wind and our ambient temperatures, using cool rates to determine your compaction.
Your time available for compaction.
Your time available for compaction.
Yep. And those are two different programs that have been written over the years. They're not fancy. They're not necessarily apps. They're generally compiled programs. No one's actually compiled them into an app. But if you Google Pavecool or Multicool, you'll get either one of these, and they both work. And they will tell you for a given set of conditions, a given set of starting temperatures and given thickness and ambient conditions, how long that mix takes before it cools off. And you choose what bottom end you want. So if you want to stop at 200 or you want to stop at 180 or something like that, you can plug that in, and that'll give you an approximate time. I think the real fundamental, or the key part of this thing, is when you're paving thin, it really affects the time.
Absolutely.
And so when you get into the fall and your base conditions change, and you got low base temperatures and you got low air temperatures, and you're trying to lay an inch, man, you get in some situations where you may have 5 minutes to get everything done. And that is not a lot of time at all to get this done. But, you know, if you're going to do it and you got to do it and you staff up accordingly and you get enough rollers, guess what? You could probably do it. So it's just a matter of understanding kind of what you're getting into before you get into. It's great for playing what if. Excellent for playing what if. What if the temperature changed? What if the wind speed increases from 0 to 30 miles an hour and the direction changes, and now I'm paving at night instead of paving at day?
Yep.
All those things will give you the opportunity to kind of see what's going on there. They're free. They're out there. They've been out there for years. It's good stuff.
It's great. And again, utilize the resource page for that. Again, texture and ride does matter. It's what the traveling public feels. That's the number one thing when their traveling public is being queried on what they see with their pavements. It's how smooth it is. It's all about smoothness. It's all about the texture and the ride. And again, if you could see it behind the mat, if you could see irregularities or streaks behind the mat, you can fix it. There's adjustments to be made to be able to fix it. But again, these are all award-winning projects. We've seen quite a few of them. We had 76 or 77 nominations this year. We're in the first round. Glenn Dvorak's group is in the first round of pavement evaluations. I've evaluated 12 pavements, and I'm telling you, I saw some really good pavements out there, Jim. We really do have some good-looking pavements.
Yep. A lot of work goes into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my hat's off to Glenn and his crew. He's got some guys out there doing pavement evaluations all over the state of Texas. Really do appreciate the fact that you guys are committed to helping us do this program. And it's very important, not only to the contracting community, but to the districts that are involved. I mean, for a district to win a quality award pavement, I mean, it's a big deal because it shows two things, okay? It shows, first of all, that the district is committed to the quality. And secondly, it shows that the contractor and the district have worked together to do it. There's never been an award winner that got up there and said, I did it all by myself. Every single one has said, I could not have done this if I didn't have my partner with TxDOT on my side, helping me through and making this go and making this happen.
Good deal.
Yeah, I was just going
to bring that up. Is it's a team effort? Absolutely.
It is a team effort.
Yeah.
And so my hat's off to you guys. And finally, we're going to talk about our daily debrief. And again, you guys remember what we talked about earlier about the traffic control? Is it set up correctly?
Yep.
That's the first thing I want you guys to talk about on your daily debrief. Is did we safely move the traffic over? Did we safely work around the traffic? Was there any issues on a safety? And if there's not, we put a checklist there. If there is, we address it before or after the shift. Every shift, we do it daily. And again, these daily debriefs are not very long. You do not have to spend more than 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Every day, and you could start with safety, and then we talk about what is the plan for today. What's the plan for this shift? What are we planning to do? And did we achieve what we were supposed to do on the last shift? Why and why not? And then again, communicating these test results. This is our mixed properties, our temperatures, our in-place air voids. All these tests, these QC and QA tests, need to be shared with everybody, especially at the plant. So all reports and documents should be turned in timely. And what is the plan for tomorrow? And again, I know that this is it's not asking a whole lot, but at the end of the shift, you guys might be tired. You had a night. You guys are ready to go. You're ready to go. I get it. But in the next shift, before you start that next shift, let's talk about the what happened before in the shift before that.
Absolutely.
And start with safety. Was our safety, our traffic queue correctly? Did we have any incidents? Do we have any near misses? Talk about that. And guys, again, it's all about safety. If you follow safety and you concentrate on quality, everything else is going to follow.
Yep.
Everything else is going to follow all the way.
Good deal.
So that was my checklist. Again,
all right, man.
We're talking about communication. Jim, thank you for the checklist. Thank you for putting that program together.
You're welcome.
I was struggling with it. I know that yesterday you saw the struggle in my eyes. You're like, it's going to be okay. It's going to. And I said, well, we're going to talk about the head of material. We're going to be talking about paver setup and the 5 forces. And you said, hey, take it easy. Let's do a checklist. And I really appreciate you taking your time with me and calming me down and helping me out.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I really appreciate that.
No problem. Well, thank you.
So,
hey, next week, just for let you know, somebody asked you get a PDH. If you signed up for this, you will get a PDH, and that'll be coming to you after the fact. Next week, we're off for the letting, but we'll be back on June the 10th, and we'll be talking about Your Job Matters, certificates, chain of custody, and reporting results. Really critical stuff. This is something everybody needs to tune in on. Absolutely, for sure. So, hey, Chuck, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We appreciate your patience. Let me get started and have to restart. You didn't see that part because we hadn't started the program yet. So we actually did this almost twice. So thanks for those that kind of yelled at me to get my act together one more time. Be safe out there. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely.
Remember all those that gave the ultimate sacrifice for us so we can enjoy laying smooth asphalt around the state of Texas. So in the meantime, be safe. God bless. Take care. Ever forward, everybody.
Thank you now.